Hey guys, so it is New Year's Day, first day of 2020. It's an interesting thing because, I've been kind of doing these vlogs and stuff, and I think something I've been thinking a lot about is like what exactly is the thing to focus on? Every year, probably since 2015, right? In 2014, I was in Madagascar serving a mission for the church I was a part of at the time, and I came back in 2015, and so for the last 5 years, it's like 5 years since I've had like my life to myself and was like really focused and doing things. And this March it'll be 6 years since I returned, and it's just been kind of rough because I realized I've been spending the last 6 years just trying to get like stable, right? Because the whole time I was looking to just try and like find a place to just put my head down, have a place to rest and be for the longest time because I was, out trying to gather and get all these things. But I was never able to like just put myself in a place where I could just rest and be stable and focus. And I think it was because I didn't necessarily have that clarity of what I wanted to do. I think I did. I kind of had an idea of what I wanted to do, but I didn't necessarily have the mechanics or the full knowledge of how to like pursue and be about that because there was all these other needs that were really encumbering me. And I think it just took a long time to kind of shift through and like shuffle through all those needs and see, okay, this is what I actually need. This is actually what I want to do. Um, and this is what I need to do in order to do that. And I hadn't been in a place to do that for a long time. And then just like kind of during this whole COVID thing, it's um it's been the one time in my life where I've just been, okay, here's the time to do it. This is the time to focus. And I was kind of, I think at the beginning in 2020, just kind of reaching for all these things and trying to like focus and clean this up over here and do that over there. But as I kind of went and tried all these different things, I saw that, okay, like it's these few particular things that are really going to give me that satisfaction and that drive. And it's been a little tough because I talked with my girlfriend, and she's, so she moved back, and we're gonna be away for a while. And a part of me was just kind of questioning the commitment and being like, well, maybe like I need to be exploring. And then I was like, you know what? No, like I know where I'm at, right? And there's a part of me that like kind of wants to go and humor all these other things and maybe wants like kind of all these other experiences. But really, like before anything else, there's this one fundamental thing that I really need to do. And I've constantly had this shiny object syndrome and been losing focus on things, and I just like need to focus and do something and get it done. And that's something that I really felt because I've never been able to like really get that solid foundation for me. And the only consistent thing I can find is that lack of focus, right? That losing the focus and losing the thing. And a part of me is just like, like do it till it's done. And I picked a goal that I understand well enough and that I've been thinking about because I understand what it looks like when it's done, what it looks like to actually accomplish it. And I feel like that clarity was something I really needed, the first part. But then obviously it's just having the day to day discipline to do it, right? And that was something that I realized that I myself I wanted to see for myself, and that was something that I wasn't necessarily doing. And so I kind of got through the first week of my schedule, kind of had the pounding of it, and had some difficult parts and some hard things that were like what or whatever. But I realized, okay, more and more like, okay, I can do this. And there's some stories I need to drop because a lot of it, I was just thinking, why has it taken so long to get to this point of stability? And there's, I think, been a lot of resentment maybe for like parenting or this or that or whatever. But I'm just realizing like I can't necessarily look like that. God, I'm getting a little fat. I need to start working out. Um, but just sort of like this idea that there's all these different things that have worked kind of with me, and they've given me a lot of mental and emotional kind of ammunition. But at the end of the day, to really build something solid in myself. Like I've just got to put in the hours of work and do it. And I realized like I admire my brother, for instance, because he was able to do that. But I think there was a large emotional toll to do that because, he stayed with my mom like for a while, and that was just really tough. Um, she's a really difficult person. Um, and so I think a lot of kind of what I've been going through and trying to like settle up in my mind is just, actually seeing results and doing that thing that actually feels like, okay, there's a switch or a turn key, and then you're actually making progress and there's something you can build on here. And, right now I've just been kind of like trying to get like, living off of government assistance, barely having anything. Like, I'm not doing much anything, uh, really adding any value. So a lot of it has just been like, okay, let me put to the point where like I have skills or something that I can do that can offer value, um, and figure out how to actually move that and put myself in a position. Because right now, I've always been the type of person like, oh, I want to make like this kind of money. I want to do big things. Honestly, right now, I just want to be in the position where like I'm in a position where I can just focus on my craft and not have to worry about what am I gonna eat and where am I gonna live. Like I would just like that, right? And this is the first time in forever, like where I've had that, right? And where I can just focus on what it is I need to do and not have to do or compromise or spend all that energy on anything else. Like this is just where I have all the time where I can dedicate and focus all that energy into making myself a better version of myself and doing things to give value. I haven't had that. And I realized that opened up this year, but I didn't really even have that stable place to stay until 3, 4 months ago. And that was only because my girlfriend came. And so I owe her a lot for that. But then I feel bad kind of her having to leave because I wasn't even really able to focus on her. And I realized I just needed this space where I wasn't living with a bunch of like drug addicts, or where I was living in a place where and I didn't know where I was going to get the money to pay rent. I mean, there was a time when I couldn't even pay $300 worth of rent. Right? That's how bad the situation was. And I was donating plasma like just to buy food. And like I was just like broke poor and I couldn't find any money and I wasn't able to um and there was just that anxiety there and I just wasn't able to like really wrap or get around my own head because I was taking bites out of somebody, and that person was a loved one and they totally took care of me. They were way better. That was the most stable year I've had in my life, right? Because I didn't have anyone kind of barking down me, and that person like totally took care of me. And I was a friend. That was just a random friend who, even though like I wasn't able to get him rent on a lot of things. He didn't say anything. He just took care of me and helped me out and was really supportive. And that was like the first time in my life I had a place where I could live and it was stable and like I didn't feel like I was gonna get thrown out and it wasn't precarious or anything like that. Like, and I realized I haven't had that, and that was something that was really tough. And I only realized it today. Like, oh God, like in order to like really get better at things and to move and advance, you need to sort of have like that reprieve, or at least I needed it. Like I really needed that time and that sense of reprieve where I can just focus and build. And I was like, yeah, the reason I wasn't working on my craft and doing all this other stuff is because I've been really, really stretched. And I was managing it before, like at the beginning of 2015, I was managing it well enough. But then I went and had to get a job for other things. And, that was just the realities. And I realized like parents, like when you give your kids just the time to be, like I realize if I have kids, man, if they're like, hey, dad, I just want to sit around for like 5 years, honestly, it's like, hey, if you're focusing and working on something, as long as you're not doing a bunch of drugs and hanging out with a bunch of losers, honestly, you can sit around and be a bum till you're 25. Like, I don't give a fuck. And I'm realizing, like, I want to be in a position where I can give my kids that. Because I think if people just have the space to be, like, whether they want to go to school or work on it, like, just give them the time and space to be confused and to figure it out and not worry about where they're going to sleep or what they're going to eat. Like, how many people get that? So few people get that. And I realize that's so why so many people struggle. And like without getting that clear direction, it's so difficult. And when someone does have the direction, just having parents who are like, "Hey, we will support you and really support you." Support doesn't mean you do what we want you to do, but like literally, oh, you have a vision for your life. That's cool. Here's a place to stay. Here's a bed to eat, and we're not going to create a bunch of drama and kick you out of your house or like rip down everything because we don't like what you're doing and just like be super toxic all the time. Like having that is so big, and I realize there's a part of me that resents not having that. Um, because like fuck, I'm 31, and I realized like since I was 13, I've always every place I've gone, there've always been like demands to do, or it's like if you do not do this, you will not be here in 2 or 3 months, like constantly every place I've gone. It's like, and I've realized that's part of being an adult, right? That's part of growing up. But I realized, like, man, like, I didn't even have like the absent of that, right? Because I realized I was talking to like 21, 22, 23 year olds who are like going to college, their parents are taking them, and they're like, yeah, I'm not worrying about how I'm going to live or what's going to happen to me so that I can focus on this one thing. And I realized, like, I haven't had that peace of mind since I was like 13 years old. And it was crazy because it was like, oh, you do this or you're going to get kicked out, or you do this and you're going to go to school. And like, I get it. Like, obviously, kids have to go to school or things like that. Right. And like, I was going to a boarding school, so it's not even like it was that bad. And that was actually a huge blessing. And I didn't appreciate how much of a blessing that was because once I stopped going to that boarding school and I went back to live with my mom, it was like absolute chaos. Right. And then I got kicked out and basically bounced around for like a decade because if you're going to live in a place where you got to pay rent, right? So it's figuring out like how can I pay rent and make do with my bills and stuff like that and still give me the time I need to just basically think and be and figure out what the hell I'm going to do and like add value to the world and not be grinded into a bag of powder. And I realized so many people don't have that, and like I myself did never had that. I like just was never given the space to just fucking be, right? And it's it's tough because it's like, okay, well, obviously you need to go through jobs and things like that, but like especially when I was realizing, okay, this is what I want to do. Once I realized what I wanted to do, I realized I've constantly been working to get myself in a place so that I can just focus and do that. And that has been like my obsession for the last 10 years. Like, let me get to a place where I'm stable enough so I can just focus on what it is I want to do, which is write and create like write stories and, become a better artist and like really work on my craft. But like, because since I've been taking care of myself and I've had to like multitask that, I've realized I've moved the needle so much on the back end and I've constantly been bouncing back and forth on stability, right? And I realized, like, yeah, it was really difficult to commit to a job or really go hard into any industry, whether it was sales or, working at this bullshit job or whatever, because it demanded so much and it wasn't really what I was trying to go for. And I didn't have the means to really balance that out. And by the times I started getting the means and the knowledge to balance that out, that was that so much time had passed, right? Like if you take me now, right? And you talk to a 20-year-old Oni, I'd be like, bro, you just want to like draw and do stuff, right? I was like, yeah, okay. It's like, okay, so you work that bullshit job at UPS. What you need to do is get a tiny little apartment. You wake up in the morning, you work that job, right? You don't stop hanging out with your loser friends because they're assholes. Stop hanging out with those dudes, right? You do some college or whatever once you get an associate's or whatever, right? And then literally just pound away and get better at doing these two things, right? And like it's just like get better at writing, write as many books as you can, right? Get a laptop, you write books, you go there, you grind, you do that, right? And then draw. And then it's like if I had done that for the last 10 years, and then once YouTube and all these things would have started, just like, okay, now do that. Because I could have worked my job, my crappy little union job. It was 20 hours a week in the morning. And then, I go back and I do that. And I would have been able to build that built meaning. But there's all these other things that I had to learn, right? And this relationship with God and all these things that I'm really glad that I got in my 20s. But that came at the cost of bouncing around and being really unstable and then trying to grab all these things. And so, and I don't actually regret it. I think now it's just I'm coming back to center and realizing like, yeah, going to that other country or, like talking to that person or whatever, that's not really what I need or want right now. Like I want just to be able to like be secure. And like this is the first time I've had it. Like it was and that's what was so rough. Like everyone was hating 2020, but I'm like 2020 was the first year where like because of lockdown and everything, like my life was like somewhat stable. And I didn't get into like a proper place to live because I was living with like some crazy ass people. Like by the way, I don't fuck with people who do drugs anymore. Well, that's not true. I mean, I have friends who do drugs and stuff like that, but like there's just like a mindset, right? And I certainly don't live with people who do drugs anymore. I'll say that. If you do drugs, I ain't living with you anymore. Like I don't do that anymore. Just cuz like that side of instability and not even to say that people who do drugs are all unstable, even though I feel like there's strong correlation. It's more like just I lost so much of my life from not just like having that safe space. And I don't think I'm entitled to that. And I recognize like it's a blessing for people who have that. But seeing that now, like I am determined when I have my children, right? They are not like I always thought it was about pushing people and making them do better. That's bullshit. I did that for 10 years and that didn't get me fucking anywhere, right? It's like when people are safe and you just believe in them and you can create that space for them, they do well. And I realized I wasn't able to do that for my girlfriend because I didn't have it. I have no idea how to do it. And like this is the first time I've had any semblance of that. So like the first beneficiary of that has to kind of be me. And now there is sort of this pressure of like, oh God, like I do have to extend it because that's part of being an adult. So like really there's this moratorium of adulthood, but it's like 3 or 4 months, and then unemployment's gonna run out. Who knows how ever this thing's gonna happen, and then I've got to figure out what to do again. But I was praying, and I think this is the best thing. Well, I'll say I took from my 20s was I got a really strong relationship with God, and I believe in that. And from coming to New York and all the different things that I've learned to do, it's just like, hey man, like I was praying and I got told that, if I focus on my purpose and I do what I'm meant to do, I will always be taken care of from here on out. No more struggling, no more bouncing around. Like, I'll be allowed to do what I need to do, and I'm not going to have to, like, deviate or go away from that. And so, 2020, the whole purpose of 2020, my goal was I just want to start living my purpose and to know what that was. And I felt like I gained that clarity in 2020. I didn't necessarily do it or, like, make the progress that I would like, but I realized perhaps that first step of clarity was really what I needed. And so for me, a lot of it's now just, okay, like I want to like, basically I want to have an animated studio and I want to tell stories, right? And I also want to educate people using those same skills. So right now I just have this book series that I've been wanting to do forever and I've had to do forever. So I'm just going to do it. I'm just going to do the Bloody Book series and finish it. And I have freaking 5 books written out of 13. And I mean, they're not the smallest books. They're like 40, 50,000 words. So they're like middle grade novella. They're like novellas. They'd be like chapter books for kids. But I was like, I can finish. There was a time when I was finishing one like every month, right? Like when I first started, I was pounding these out. And I realized like, oh wow, I've never actually sustained that type of work for a while. But it's like, it's not like I can't. I know that I can. So it's just about doing it. And I'm just tired of like I'm tired of sucking in life. And like this is the first time where like for 3 months, I'm like, oh God, like for these months, I don't have to worry about what I'm going to eat and where I'm going to live. Like I know I'll live here for 3 months. I have not had that type of security for like a fucking decade. Right? Well, I've had that, but meaning like, and I don't have to piss anybody off. Like the next closest thing I had it to was like when I was married, or when I was working a job where I was a live-in nanny, and those are really, really great. But like you have to please all these other people, right? So you can't really focus on yourself. And it was just crazy to be like, whoa, I'm in a time in a place where like I really don't have to give a shit about anybody else, and I know where I'm gonna eat and sleep, and I can just focus on me. Like that's crazy. I haven't had that for a long time. And every other time when I've had to like focus on me, I didn't have that. I didn't know if I was actually going to be able to live there because I wasn't making the money and I was living paycheck to paycheck. And then I would like try and make a bunch of money or whatever. And there's just demands with jobs and stuff. I don't know. It's just weird to finally be in this space, and it's eerie for me, and I don't know how to handle it. And I want to handle it well and with grace, and I'm grateful for it because I realize what it is. I realize, like, whoa, like I can just be me right now, and I can just really focus on what I need to do, um, and hold myself accountable for it. And I'm wanting and wanting to do that. And it's just nice not having to worry, even like a part of me is like, well, what about 3 or 4 months? It's like, yeah, but like, who knows what's gonna happen in 3 months? Like, you've no flipping clue. So why are you gonna spend so much time and energy worrying about that? And um, I think that's the biggest evolution in my mind, just getting to like, right here, right now, and for the next few months, you're going to be safe. So just do what you can right here and right now to extend that lifeline out. And I've never had that, and or I haven't had that for a long, long, long time. And in a lot of ways, with the freedom and like kind of just the I don't know, that salt isolation, because I've been isolated and things like that. But there's nothing like really closing in. Like there's no crazy people. Like my roommate, he's a grinder too. He's just this Japanese dude, and it's just nice to be in a place where I'm not living with a bunch of crazy people, or and it's safe, and I'm just like it's insane. I haven't had this, and I'm just really grateful because I feel old sometimes, but then I mean, I don't feel old. I feel old when I think about it, when I look at the years and I'm like, God, like, why did it take so long? But then when I look and feel in myself, I'm like, I still feel like I'm a young man. I still feel like I got this energy. Until like I go play ball or like try to go up and try and do a dunk. I'm like, oh, and my back hurts or whatever. But, or I see this beard. And I don't know, sometimes it can be a little depressing, but I don't know. It was just nice to just realize, like, whoa, like the thing I was looking for all those years, I just wanted a place where I could just be, where I had space and safety. Like, and I realized, like, I haven't had that, right? And, like, I mean, the closest thing I had to was barely a decade when I was living with all these other people and stuff like that. And I was able to, and I was making progress then, right? And I realized the difficulty is that I've always had to like kind of appease or be with other people and like just sort of fit in. And now like for the first time ever, I'm just like, yeah, I don't have to fucking do that. Like if I don't like you, I don't have to talk to you or be with you, and it's not going to affect my living situation. Because my roommate, like, he's cool and I don't have to do anything with him. Like he's cool. And it's just nice to be in a place where like for the first time, like I'm not having to manage or put any energy in anything other than simply getting better. And it's so nice. It's so nice. And I haven't had that. And it really hit me like just really hard. Like, whoa, like I haven't had that. And I want to make sure like my kids have that. I want to make sure like they're in a place where they have their own space and they're just safe to do what they need to do, and that they're allowed and trusted and cared for, that they can just be given that. And like that's why I'm working so that this thing that fucking took me 3 fucking decades to get to, my kids have from the get-go, right? Because like I know like if you give me just a year, I know what I accomplished with just a year of this like space, like really having that. And like my kids, like imagine if they were able to be my age and they had it, like they would be so well off. But like constantly not having to feel danger or like be like sucked into all these different schemes, or having to feel like you need to do something or you're going to die, like not having that pressure and feeling like something's going to happen to you. And I realize that's part of growing up and being an adult, right? But I realize coming out of the gate like that, it's so crippling and it's so hard to not be anything but just in survivor mode. And I've been struggling with that, trying to get out of that way of thinking because that's not how I think. And that's kind of been the struggle of my story. And it's just nice to be in a place where it's like, oh, yeah, at least for the next 3 months, I don't have to be in survival mode. And, who knows what can happen in that time. Um, and it was just crazy, like I don't have to do this for that person. I don't have, like, my rent's, it's going to be paid for. I'm going to have food. And, like, as far as I can logically know, unless there's a comet or something crazy happens, that'll happen. And it's just crazy to me to think, like, whoa, I never had that. I was never able to just get up and be. I've had plenty of days where I've just been a bum or this or that, but like the anxiety of like, oh, I need to be doing this or that, and you're always trying to find a solution, and then do the solution. Like just being like, oh yeah, for the first time in my life, I don't have to do that. I can just focus on like getting better at things and not having to find some gimmicky solution. And I know that's not always going to be the case. Like I know when March rolls around, I'll probably have to, I'll need to change. I'll get that probably. Who knows? I don't know. I'm just enjoying this right now for what it is and just trying to focus on like today. And I think like that's the promise I'm making to myself. Like just take on everything that I need to do day by day. Like I have my long plan and just being like, okay, today I'm just going to focus on what I need to do today and like add any other good ideas or whatever and just add and kind of build and then trust that promise. I was promised, hey, if you focus and do the things you need to do, you'll never have to go away from that again. And that's what faith in God is, right? And that's what we do. And who knows how it'll be compromised or if it will be. I don't know. I know that I came to New York, didn't know anybody, didn't have any friends, didn't even have a place to stay. And 13 months later, what was it, 15 months later, I'm still in New York. And, I didn't have to go pit myself out to do it. So it made out and I worked out. So I'm happy. I'm encouraged for the first time ever. And I feel bad because I realized what I wanted to give to my girlfriend. I wasn't able to give it to her because I myself had never been given that. And, I talked to her today and we called and it was just this realization like, yeah, she had to go because I had never had that. I had never had this space. I had never had that. And I didn't know what it felt like. I didn't know how to preserve it. I didn't know how to do anything with it. And I didn't know what that felt like. And I realized like I just need that, at least for a little bit. And then I can give it to somebody else as soon as I know it. But I've always had demands. I've always had expectations. And I've never just been allowed to just be and then do according to what I want for myself, nobody else. And I realized like if your parents have given you that space, that's something to be super grateful for because I realize there's so many people who do not have that. And that's something that I realized like that clarity, what I want for my children, that I want to be able to give my children just the space to be whomever they want to be. And obviously I'd be like give them the guidance and be like, yeah, don't be a fucking loser and take shit and be evil. But other than that, like I just want to give them the space. Here's a place to live. Here's some food. Here's some fun activities. We can watch some movies. And just love them and give them the space they need to be and not have that constantly threatened. Like, God, it feels so good. And I didn't realize I'd never had that until just today. And it's not to say like you can't live with your parents or whatever, but it's like I don't know. It's weird, but like being on your own, there's that expectation of like obviously you need to do it, but I realize I'm not really even taking care of myself and being covered really by the government. But like, I ain't gonna live off of that shit forever, right? Like, that's not my long term. Anyway, it's been 30 minutes. I've been ranting, and it's supposed to be a 10-minute video, but just happy to have space. So, first week, I have my rest day tomorrow, and then I'll do another day of planning. So, I'm excited for that. Let's get it.